Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Despot.
Here.
Mr. Silver.
Here.
Ms. Phillips. Here. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
All right, very good. So let's take a look at the minutes from the previous meeting. And Keith, you already have, Kelly Silver, you have a...
I have a change. Under old business, I'd like to remove the name Kelly under Kelly Silver. Remove
the revolution began.
Other than that, I move to, with that amendment, I move to accept the minutes.
I'll second them.
All right, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Those no. All right, the minutes are accepted as amended. Persons to be heard. Do we have anyone to be heard today? Special orders. We have no special orders, so let's move on to old business. Reconsideration of advisory opinion 2011-1. This issue involving Mr. Trainee, right, and the sponsorship question. And so we had identified that there was a gap, right, that our advisory letter had not addressed the issue of sponsorship. And as I recall, the conversation last time was to think about what we wanted to do in terms of, did we want to see sponsorship of an ordinance as an official act, which would make it covered by the code, and if it was, what we wanted to do in terms of managing potential conflicts of that. And Dee, according to the minutes, I think this must have been after I left, we charged you with taking a look at that further. So,
and if I can point everybody to 1.15.035. And here was some of the debate about what was going on last time, to paraphrase, is Section B, this is additional provisions for elected officials. In paragraph B, last line, elected officials may not participate in any official action in which the elected official or member of the elected official's household has a substantial financial interest. Now, the problem, David, that we're discussing here is that when a assemblyman or assembly person wants to sponsor a bill or ordinance, they don't have a chance to disclose any potential conflict to the assembly until after the fact. They've already sponsored it. They've already put their name on it, it's submitted to the assembly, and so they put their credibility behind that bill. Versus when they're going to, somebody sponsors something and then at the assembly meeting itself, an assembly member says, I have a business interest, I think conflicts with that, and the assembly debates that and they decide yea or nay. So in a sponsorship setting, there's not a pre-disclosure avenue for the assembly person, and so we refer to that as a gap. This board has taken a pretty strong stance that they do not want to pre-review assembly conflicts disclosures that could be disclosed at the hearing itself. That's part of the public forum, that if someone has a business interest, it should be in front of the public and discussed among their peers, and that for the most part we do not want to second guess. In fact, there is a provision here, 1.15.035B, that states that we don't get to second guess the assembly about the determinations. The problem is this is a pre-assembly matter. So the question came up is whether this was an official action, and was an official action only if there was voting. I did some minor research, not a lot on it. There are a lot of cases about is everything that an official does official action or not. So it really never used the word sponsorship. And so I guess just, I will say as someone who participates a lot in the assembly process, and maybe Barbara can add into that, this portion of it, I'm going to go through sort of a three-step analysis, is that by the time someone sponsors the bill, they're putting their full weight and credibility behind that bill. That I can think of little else that is official action, really. I mean, it's very official. They're doing that for a reason, for constituents, for whatever, that I, even though I couldn't find legal support, that I just can't see how that can't be deemed official action. Of course, there's not a definition in our code section, and you don't find it in other codes in particular. Again, it's what level of official action is what they really get into the case law. So maybe if we could just focus on that analysis first, and then I'll lead you through a couple of the other steps. I mean, what's the board's opinion on whether a sponsorship is official action? I think it might be you, Robin. You were leading the direction that only if you take a vote on something should it be considered meeting.
You see it all the time. Isn't there an awful lot of stuff that's introduced that never even gets a vote?
Yes, it can be pulled from the calendar. Or, I mean, most stuff I think it's
Or sent to
Oh,
committee,
oh, I-
you never hear it again from it again?
No, there's very little.
yeah, most
It's
stuff.
unlike the state legislature, there's very little, almost everything has a direct action to it.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally they postpone and they pull it off the calendar, they're sending it to committee, but yes, most of our stuff.
Gets 99% of what gets voted.
Well, again, like I said last time, I'm inclined to agree with you. I'm inclined to think of it as an official action. It's something that the assembly person is doing in their role as assembly person. It's part of the official legislative function of what they do. So it seems to me that sponsorship of an ordinance is an official action. And my sense is that it is covered then by this prohibition.
So, assuming that, then how do we manage that?
Well, I was looking over this stuff again, and here's the way I'm thinking about it, is that, we've been refraining from dealing with the conflict issues in terms of voting and deliberation with the assembly because we have C here, which lays out specifically. But I want you to notice, like having looked at it again and thought about it, C specifically talks about comment, deliberation, and decisions on matters coming before the elected body. So in other words, it seems to me it's very much about what's going on at the meetings before you vote, before you participate, before you deliberate. If you have a conflict, you need to disclose it. And then our sense has been that this provision of the code says it's up to the assembly really to decide that. And I think that is the appropriate forum to decide those kinds of conflict situations. Sponsorship is something, it seems to me, that comes even before comment, deliberation, and decision at an assembly meeting. And so I think we are the only avenue to manage those kinds of conflicts. And so, again, I think it would, it's preferable to have it in the open where assembly persons can question these. But I think given the logistical problem of not being able to pre-disclose the sponsorship to the assembly, I think this is the place to do it. And in fact, again, I don't think the code on those particular issues, I'll be honest with you, I don't think the code gives that authority to the assembly to decide. The way I'm reading C is that if we're talking about comment, deliberation, and decision, then the assembly gets to call its own shots about who has conflicts and who doesn't. But it does seem to me that other official actions that assembly persons take that is not covered by that phrase, it seems to me falls back within our purview to determine if there's a conflict or not.
Okay, so to back up just a little bit, in our monthly meetings that we've had to have some emergency meetings when individuals have asked us for emergency opinions because they got a timely filing that had to be made at a certain time. Individuals that are covered by the board, by the ethics. I guess I'm concerned that this is going to be, we're going to have a huge increase in workload as if we get requests for opinions from the assembly because and I'm not trying to get out of the work, I'm just trying to figure out how to handle this. Is because, in one way or another, if you're sponsoring some space, you have an interest in it. And I'm afraid that the potential for conflict is huge. So I'm not trying to get out of it, I just am trying to figure out how we manage this. And maybe I'm stepping ahead of the game.
No,
You've got more to
actually,
give.
you delved right into what I was going to get into.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was my concern too, was that, normally when you introduce something, it's because you have an interest in it, or somebody requested you have an
I was going
interest
to say,
in
it's
it.
different though if a constituent has an interest.
Right.
Versus you have a direct interest. And for instance, this is a veteran's bidding preference, and he is a 60% veteran, versus he brought this on behalf of, Covenant Shelter for some other preference.
Well, agreed. He's 60% disabled, so he would get anything over 50%. I think he would get a better preference on. So he definitely has a vested interest or a conflict, although he's opted himself out in this particular case. But that's the next one coming up, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. I guess maybe I'm wrong, but I see it that.
Well, Keith, I don't think we need to do these on an emergency basis, personally, that they they know they have this, I mean, it's going to take a volunteer group 2 to 3 months to deal with these issues often, at least 2 months, or by the time you write an opinion. That it's not an emergency, and if they want something through in a timely fashion, they're going to have to do it ahead of time, and/or they pass it off to another assembly member. I mean, it's interesting that this was kept with Assemblyperson Trainee, and that he's adamant he's not passing it off, apparently. So I'm not sure that we have to look at it as close in terms of the emergency nature of it.
Not knowing exactly how the legislative process, I mean, I know it, but I don't know if it has to be done in a timely manner.
Well, see, if he let someone else sponsor this, then he would still go through his disclosure at the assembly meeting, and probably they would agree that he had a conflict, or discuss with him management of conflict. So, I mean, it's easy enough to get the bill. You always get another assembly person to bring it forward.
Don't you have to have 2 others as well?
Yes, there's 3.
So if now we have to have 2 other people that have no conflict, maybe which may be difficult if you're trying to find, to sponsor, to find somebody of your same persuasion, do it, maybe you can't. So possibly that should be brought forward, right?
Well, Barbara, what do you think?
Well, I had a wrinkle thought last night. Is it abuse of your power? You're using your power just as an assembly member to almost coerce, but to urge somebody, and they want your vote on something else. So it gets kind of tumbly and wrinkly when you start getting in the middle of this. If I go to, Trainee goes to Chris Burge and said, hey, could you do this for me? He just goes, yeah. And the appropriation is coming up for the Boys and Girls Club in my district. I mean, it's usually not quite that overt, but it's, it's kind of tricky when you get into it. Are you really absolving yourself of a problem if you push somebody else to do it on your behalf?
I think it does, because you're not putting your full weight and credibility and name behind the sponsorship, which apparently is important. I view that as less important personally, but it apparently is very important to the sponsors. So you're not putting your good faith, your good name on the bill up front.
Aside from the assemblyman and then our assembly person, and through the clerk's office to the mayor, or the mayor to the clerk's office, is there any other way to introduce a bill?
Now, if the mayor wants a bill introduced, it's the chair, at the request of the mayor, does it, or it's 3 assembly members.
Okay.
Usually what happens is all those introductions go on the consent agenda with the public hearing date predetermined, and they never get pulled, very rarely. So just automatically sort of one big bulk consent agenda vote. So it's...
But there's not another committee that somebody could run because you can do that in the legislative, but not.
Right, yeah. The only exception to that is the school budget. And I don't know what happened when that section of the code got written, but when the school budget is delivered to me on March 1st, and it's considered at that point to be introduced. So
It would, to me, I would just think that by now there have been many bills or pieces introduced by people that had conflicts. And obviously they were handled just fine. And so I'm not so sure why we'd do anything preemptive until it was introduced. And then once it's introduced, it comes up.
Well, except that this person has asked for an advisory opinion.
Yeah.
He certainly has that prerogative under our code.
Yeah.
So I understand the larger concerns.
Right. And I suppose, one issue might be, to protect them from exposure, from notices of potential violations, right? You could certainly imagine someone.
But then they should have found somebody else to introduce it.
Well, that's right, but I'm saying if we don't step in for the sponsorship issue and wait until things are introduced actually at the assembly meeting, you could imagine someone perhaps for political purposes, perhaps not, then files a notice of potential violations. So, wait a minute, they sponsored it, it's an official action, they had a conflict, they didn't disclose it to the board, they couldn't disclose it to the assembly beforehand, so they violated the code. We might be forced to agree with someone in that situation.
Well, pre this discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. And in all fairness, I think Julie is right in the sense that, I think we owe I think we owe Mr. Trainee another letter. I think we owe him a more complete answer. Well, the logician in me must point out that in no way was the letter a non sequitur. It was certainly an incomplete answer. It was an incomplete answer. There's no doubt about that. I missed, and I think we missed that he was asking about official action, and he does say including sponsorship, and we just sort of missed that gap. And she pointed out, and I think we owe him. He asked for advice, and I think we, even though it might be too late, I think we do owe him at least a complete answer to what he asked for.
We also owe the Assembly another one of those roundtable meetings so that we can discuss this as a group with you and Julia, so that they can understand in their own mind, and we can all together understand this, because this is going to be changing their procedure.
Well, what Robin are saying is a valid point. Does this imply a standard? Are we interpreting this code to say that anybody who sponsors an ordinance better be careful about whether they have an interest in that pre-sponsorship versus at the Assembly meeting itself?
And it's with since there is no other alternative aside from a member sponsoring, assembly person sponsoring, then I have to assume that there's going to be conflicts even in everything. Or not in everything, but in a majority of things. So.
I mean, this may be a very good place for a code change.
Yes, I was just going to say
And
that.
a quick code change, because we want to, because I think Robin here too would be correct, that probably a lot, it's apart from the ones you're bringing for constituents, but, there's people, land use people there who continue to do land use stuff, and, I mean, you have what each person is interested in.
And that makes sense. You'd assume
Yeah, exactly.
you would assume that your veteran would introduce the veterans bill. You would assume that your land use person introduced the land use bill. So,
And is it enough? Is the public interest protected enough by public disclosure after introduction?
At the Assembly level.
Yeah, I think that's the worry, right?
What is it we're trying to do? And what's the protection?
and my feeling is yes, it is, because no action. No, I mean, yes, I understand the fact that you're saying that they've put their full name and stuff behind it, but they're going to anyway.
So what you're saying is we still need to respond in a different manner, or with an addendum.
Yeah, I think we should write a second letter, and consider it as an addendum to the original opinion, addressing precisely the question of sponsorship.
At the same time, we need to look potentially at an amendment to so that this question is addressed within the code. Of course, who passes the code? Who passes the code with the Assembly?
But this,
That falls under, they also vote on property tax levies, and they vote on things, that really was affected.
So I wonder if, what we could do is we could come out with this advisory and we could see what happens. Right now, over the last few years, we've only had a couple of these come up about this conflict stuff. We had the one from Flynn about a year ago.
He had a business interest after.
That's right, yeah. And so, we may be surprised at the number of people who, when they look at the code, think, oh, I really better run this by the ethics board because I really might have a conflict. In other words, we might only get the borderline cases. I would certainly hope that, assembly persons are intelligent enough that if they have an obvious conflict of interest, they can look at the code and go, well, I'm actually not allowed to do this. Once we make it known that sponsorship is an official action as far as we see it, that if you obviously have a conflict, then you've got to hand it off. You've got to find someone else to sponsor it. If you obviously don't have a conflict, you don't need to run it past the board. And then what we get are these kind of gray area cases in the middle, like Mr. Trainee here saying, look, I am a veteran, but I don't foresee being a recipient to this kind of thing. But I can see maybe someone would see a problem. That's the kind of stuff that gets run past us. If we get overwhelmed and we find it's causing problems to the legislative process, then we recommend a change in the code.
So would you entertain a motion?
Well, I think we need to soften up Robin some more. We've been very consensual in this committee, and so, because
Well,
Because, or where are you on this? Because my view is, I think it's an official action. I would like us to see us reviewing these kinds of things. If assembly persons have a genuine concern that they're in violation of this element of the code.
I guess I'm halfway between the two of you. I see the conflict, and I see that it needs to be addressed, especially in an addendum letter. But I'm also concerned about how it might tend to disrupt the process of getting anything done, because you can't. I have shot fireworks also, therefore I have a conflict and can't have a code, something I can't bring in an assembly ordinance about fireworks. So,
Yeah. Well, we could, we could make clear in the letter, because remember, the conflict, right, it's language is a little bit, right, it's financial or private interest held by a member, what is it? It's has a substantial financial interest, right? And so, and I think we've talked about this one before, right? So we could try to lay out what we mean a little bit by substantial financial, because I think we've had to have done that in the past with
defined?
Yeah, it's in D in that same section.
See, Dave, this
Oh,
is...
that's.
yeah, there we go.
and then-
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
D.
Yeah, right, and so we have those things, and so that, and I see what you're saying, and so, since it says substantial financial interest or private interest, if we could go back, and articulate in the opinion 1 through 5, that's what we're going to be looking at to determine. So that way, yeah, because I don't want the assembly person who shut off fireworks to now say, oh, do I have a conflict? I better run it past the board if I'm going to propose something. But, to be honest, I think I do want the assembly person who owns a firework factory who's going to sponsor an ordinance about fireworks. And yeah, I think they should run it by us before they go sponsoring it and taking it to the assembly, saying, well, I'm the sponsor, and now that I'm here, if you don't want me to talk anymore, I'm happy not to talk, but I've already put my weight behind it, I've already got my name on it. I personally would like to see that run past us. So that might help filter some of it out. If we say, look, since it's substantial, it's not just, what the code says, it's not just an interest, it's got to be a substantial interest.
It's something that Dean and I talked about yesterday. What weight, what power and authority does an advisory opinion have? If you come back and say, we think you've got a conflict, you shouldn't sponsor this, the guy goes, thanks for the opinion, I'm sponsoring it, what's the control? Is there any?
Well,
Well, I was going to say, someone could file a notice of potential violation.
Yeah.
That would be the threat. We publicize the advisory opinions, and so you could get a, what's his name? Chris Conrad, that type, sees the web and files a notice of potential violation. And again, and my sense is that we should put this in the letter. It does seem to me that these are kind of official actions that are not covered under C, and I know the assembly won't like this, but I don't think the code gives the assembly final say on this one. And so,
Now, here's why I may disagree with you.
okay, let's talk.
Is I think if it came to the board and the board said, we do find a conflict, then I think that assembly person has a difficult time going forward without a potential board member stepping off and filing a notice of potential violation. If the board, however, says, we find that you don't have a substantial financial interest, then if you look down to D, it says the elected body shall be the final authority. So is there a second shot at the apple for the assembly? If we say we think you're safe, but then that would be okay, that's public process. They're going to probably excuse themselves anyway at that point, or ask to be. So I'm not sure that's a problem. I think an assembly member that comes before the board and it is a conflict would certainly be at risk to continue to move forward.
But I wonder, it says that it shall be the final authority on whether the financial private interest as disclosed is substantial under this chapter, right? And then so the disclosure refers to C. And C talks about common deliberation and decision.
And Terry, I'm just not sure of that, because the whole elected official action came up in B, and so it's hard to, the whole subsection C to me seems to be prior to meeting type disclosure, right at the meeting.
Yeah, I think it's a quirk. I mean, I actually agree with you in the sense that I think it looks to me like C and D are supposed to be sort of like explications of what the idea of B. They're supposed to operationalize B, and the problem is the sponsorship issue, right? I mean, in other words, there could be official acts that are not covered under C and D, and this wouldn't be the first time that the code has had these kind of little quirks about it.
It's interesting enough, as we speak more, I'm becoming more convinced. Well, I don't, but I think it requires a code change. We don't want every time someone thinks about sponsoring a bill, should they be thinking about conflict of interest at that point, that they belong to an organization that would benefit from this, or, the code has a simple way of dealing with most conflicts of interest on the assembly, and that is you disclose it to your fellow members, and they make a decision. If they have further questions, they can. Whereas this is a difficult, whether or not they come here, but boy, doesn't this imply that they're in violation of the ethics code for not coming to us first.
Yeah, right, I mean,
But is that, I mean, just theoretically speaking, ethically speaking, is that bad? I mean, the idea is if someone has a conflict of interest, should they be sponsoring a bill? I mean, should they be sponsoring an ordinance when they have the kind of conflict that you would certainly hope the assembly would come to exclude them anyway? And so they arrive saying, I'm the sponsor of this bill, and I fully expect the assembly not to let me participate because I have this deep conflict. Well, geez, why are you involved with it in the first place? At least ethically, I know logistics, there's logistical potential problems. But ethically, that doesn't bother me. I mean, it seems to me ethically that's about right, isn't it? That we don't want, as a matter of good governance, right? We ethical governance, we don't want people officially involved in legislation if they have this kind of conflict of interest.
And, I didn't do this, but it would be interesting to look under the State Ethical Act, how the sponsorship, if that's brought in under the rubric of conflict of interest.
I guess I'm still thinking that sponsorship is just that, and until it gets introduced and before the body, and if the elected body then determines that they can't do it, they can't do it. And then if it comes before us, then we're taking the role of the assembly, and I don't think that's where we belong.
But would you maybe agree that, because I see the hole that they're talking about, would you agree that, a minor change to say, as an example, that sponsorship becomes an official, is an official act, and is therefore the purview of the assembly to regulate, as is the other?
Yeah.
Be a way to address this?
Yeah, I think I think a letter needs to be redone. And I do believe that we do need to find a way to fill this gap. But I just don't know that the Board of Ethics is where we determine sponsorships. And to me, that's an assembly job.
Well, now we come full circle to,
we
I
have.
think, what Barbara had said last meeting, that it's not addressed in the code.
Right, and that's the problem.
Code analysis.
So I'm willing to work with a stopgap, some way to get through this and get a letter out and a suggestion, but I think it has to be addressed. But I don't think that the the Board of Ethics is where it should make the determination of whether something should be sponsored or not. I think that's a common sense thing on the assembly person's part.
Can I ask you why? I mean, why don't you think it should be here first?
Because there's going to be a conflict. I mean, if a constituent asks you to introduce something, anybody could have, or you have a personal or private interest in it once it's in your district or in your assembly. I feel that you have an interest in it because it betters your neighborhood, it betters your And it only makes sense that you introduce things that are for your district or for your constituents, and therefore you have an interest. And I think that's going to happen for every bill that you have to sponsor. And like we said earlier, it makes sense that a veteran would sponsor a veterans bill. It makes sense that the land use person would sponsor a land use bill because they're most knowledgeable in it. With only the members of the assembly able to sponsor bills, and like you had said earlier, tax increase bills have to be sponsored by a member of assembly, and everybody has an interest in those. So I just don't see that we should determine who can sponsor a bill.
Does this come up often in front of the assembly?
No, I mean, it hasn't been raised to this level of inspection
It
before,
was
but this is,
brought up actually by Assembly,
Yeah.
former chair Trainee, who brought it up, because he's a veteran and of 60% disability.
Right.
He brought it because he has an ordinance that he's proposing.
he said that he wouldn't benefit from it, but that's, at this moment where he is, he could retire and in 2 years have a company that would be competing. But there's something that comes up in legislative discussion, and I can't remember the exact terms, but if a tax rate setting bill affects everybody relatively equally to the size of your house, I mean, but this would not benefit everybody
Everyone.
else sitting
Yeah.
in the assembly. So that's,
I can see that.
especially
So you
situated.
got a specific
Yeah.
benefit as opposed to an overall benefit.
And again, if you look at the criteria, that's criteria number 5, right? Is the financial or private interest the type which is generally possessed by the public or a large class of persons to which
Yeah.
the elected official belongs. And so, I mean, if you look at 1 through 5, in terms of the training one, I think we hit with number 3. Is the financial or private interest immediate and known, or is it conjectural and dependent on factors beyond the official action? Well, that's where he is. It's conjectural. I mean, maybe one day in the future there's going to be an interest. Well, this says no, it's got to be immediate and known. So again, I think we have screening devices. I don't think we're going to have a situation where every interest triggers this part of the code. It has to be substantial, and this actually gives us 5 criteria for thinking that through.
And it makes sense, I would think, for someone sponsoring a bill to be thinking about conflict of interest at the very beginning.
Right.
There's no harm in,
No, but in that case, then they should have had somebody else introduce it. If they automatically thought it was a personal conflict of interest, then they should have automatically thought of somebody else to introduce it.
and that's kind of in place now, right? I mean.
Well, there's nothing that says that. And that therein lies the problem.
Yeah, and Mr. Trainee had come to us, I think as a veteran, he probably had a desire to be the sponsor for this. Thinks that he doesn't have a conflict, it seems to me, but was concerned that there might be an appearance of a conflict and wanted to run it by us. And so my suspicion is that's the kind of stuff we would get. I mean, I think the sniff test solves a lot of these, right? I think in a lot of cases it's pretty obvious you have a conflict, or it's pretty obvious that you don't. And you may have these gray area cases where you have people who don't, but they just want to be sure. Maybe people who think, boy, this is kind of pushing it, but boy, I'd really like to be the sponsor for this ordinance. They run it by us, sort of in hopes that maybe they can make their case and that we give them the green light to do it.
Well, Mr. Trainee is very sophisticated with respect to ethics. He was here for half of the implementation of this code, so.
I mean, it basically just comes down to different ways of looking at it. I don't see sponsorship as an official action until it gets introduced.
Well, yeah, that's right. So the rest of it's just water under the bridge.
Yeah, so,
Well, it does require substantial financial interest, and so the assembly person
so I can see what
thinks they might have a substantial financial interest, and it behooves them perhaps to come to us until we get a code, we put in a code verification, we would do that. If we really want to stay out of the sponsorship business altogether. Although David's point is well taken, if you do have a substantial financial interest, maybe you shouldn't be. And a substantial, I mean, they can read what substantial financial interest means too, and there's sort of a smell test to this.
So on that, I'm okay to go forward with some suggestions, but still not thrilled with it. How's that?
Okay. Well, how about this? Do you want to, should I cook up a second letter and send it around and see if the language of that letter is by and large acceptable to everyone, and then proceed with it. And if we, and if Robin or Dee, if there are continued objections, let's maybe, I can send out, another draft, or we just revisit this again at our next meeting. Should we do that? I mean, I would like us to proceed, but on the same time, I want everyone to be at least accepting of the, that there's reasonability if we're going to. Right. Because again, we've done pretty well, working conceptually, and I'd like us to kind of continue to be able to do that.
I think that would be just fine. So we probably.
Something else that Dee and I talked about yesterday was we're both getting a little concerned about how much work the board does on email traffic. So I think at least the formal acceptance of the letter should be done at a public meeting.
I think so. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. And we're not time crunched for this particular one for training, is that right? He's
Started
already.
in May, I think.
Yeah, right.
See, this is a good lesson to the assembly.
Kidding. So why don't we do that then? So we'll and if you're concerned about email, so I'll text everyone.
I actually prefer Twitter.
I'll tweet.
You have to keep it to 140 letters.
Everyone. Post something on Facebook. Check it out, and if you all click like, I'll send it on to the assembly.
Well, anyway, so moved.
So what's so moved?
The motion is for Dr. Kelly to draft an amendment to the original letter.
Proposed change.
Discussing
Or maybe some-
the concerns of the board about sponsorship.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
David, do you want to pose your
Just a
question?
really quick question. When you were talking about
Discussion.
making a change to the code, making a change in what way? Kind of late to this issue, but like making that a part of the assembly, this kind of gap issue, or making it more clearly a part of
I think
the
we
board.
could define, it might be defining official action, because there's no definition of
Okay.
what is that, and one thing that it's specifically saying it doesn't include sponsorship. Well, that'll be the interesting debate with the assembly. If someone has a clearly substantial financial interest, should they be sponsoring it?
I mean, I kind of like to hear that, too, what the assembly thinks
Yeah,
of
because
sponsorship, if whether it's an official action.
Which is why I suggested some sort of workshop, because it's
That's actually a great idea. Yeah, I'm trying to work out with them what would. Yeah, so the draft letter will just articulate the stopgate, right? Just like given right now, no changes in the code. How are we seeing this particular situation that these kinds of conflicts potential conflict when it comes to sponsorship should be brought to the board to be reviewed. And we'll just let the letter go at that, and then we'll schedule a meeting with the assembly and talk about potential code. It might be worth it to try to gather up a few things that we think maybe the code should be changed to do, like more power from the chair of the board would be a good idea.
Outstanding. And compensation.
That's very compensating. It's compensation.
Then we haven't ruled on this issue yet. I mean, you're going to do the letter, which is going to give us a framework, and then you're going to, so you say the word rule, you haven't voted on this issue yet. So, I mean, you haven't looked at the factors.
To Robin's point, we talk about land use, so should Dan Coffey decide to run for the assembly again, everybody's going to be looking for him for the lands issues. Not so much the training for veterans, but for Coffey, because he wrote Title 21, and if it gets passed, they're going to be looking to him. And so somewhere, I mean, I see the conflict, but I also, how do we address it? And that's the challenge.
And he owns real estate, so.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, he might be the kind of one, but again, I mean, I don't know. Again, from just like it may be logistically a bit of a headache, but geez, I mean, again, from an ethical standpoint, I mean, if you look at 1 through 5. If you have someone who's talking about sponsoring an ordinance and they have a substantial interest, it is immediate and known, it is significant monetarily, and it's not an interest generally presented by the place, but gosh, that person shouldn't be involved in the process. They really shouldn't, it seems to me. I mean, it seems to me that's what ethical governance is about. And so you go to him, so you go to him for his expertise and his advice and everything, but he shouldn't be the one sponsoring this stuff. And if you meet conditions 1 through 5, again, I hope an honest assembly would say to him when he discloses his conflict that, oh yeah, no, you can't participate.
Well, that's the thing too, is we live in a very small community. I mean, how many times do you appear before judges and you have people in the jury, you can't pick a completely, absolutely. You can never go and pick a jury without knowing half, at least some. We're in a very, very small community. I ended up seeing you today. My neighbor, right? I would think that we can trust the judgment of the assembly members to a certain extent to be able to filter a lot of these things out, right? So a substantial, when is it substantial, when is it not? I mean, you're going to have conflicts all over the place. And so
That's right.
I would think that we can trust our judgment to determine what substantial is and then be able to filter.
Well, I think in most cases, yeah, we'll just get the sniff test, we'll get it one way or the other, and we'll get the borderline. In fact, if you notice, this section begins precisely with that. I mean, this is sort of the idea, right, that provide their time and energy, and it's expected that they're going to have other professional endeavors, right? And so then I think that's why this whole section emphasizes substantial interest, because it's expected that these people are, the mayor is the only one who's really expected that this is his or her full-time job, and that's why the ethical standards are actually a bit heightened for the mayor. More of it's given to us instead of for the mayor to determine for him or herself. So that's what. Yeah. So we haven't, decided what we'll do, but I'll cook up a letter laying out the stopgate approach and see what people say about it. And then we'll take Barbara's suggestion and we'll hold off on actually approving that letter for our next meeting.
And then if I could suggest that if we're going to do more of that at the meeting, which we should be with open public meeting laws, is if we can try to get the letter, say, a week ahead of time and the materials out about the same time, because
That would be
we all
great.
wait for the day before the deadline.
Not me.
Yeah.
I wait for it the day of around lunchtime.
He's
That's
now in
when I try
charge.
to-
And generally,
Now I'm in
generally
charge.
emails come in as you're walking in the door.
That's right. That's right. I'm firing it off just as I drive into the assembly. I'm like in a car accident one day. So good. Yeah. So
Just a reminder, if we're really, in other words, we're not going to get these in an email string.
Okay, well, we have a motion on the floor.
I was gonna say we have a motion. Oh, just gonna say.
any more discussion? For once, we're actually following the rules, right? So any more discussion on this motion? All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. All right, the motion passes, and I will cook up that draft and send it out. Let's take a look next at old business B, reconsideration of request for advisory opinion 2011-3 and the annual approval of intent bid. What happened? Why is this back?
I suspect this will be very quick.
Okay.
My staff want me to bring this back. They feel, Dee and I discussed this, and she disagreed, but my staff feels very much that this gives this guy a buy. It doesn't meet all the other requirements of the code where it says you'll identify which things you're going to do, that you pay a $15 fee. And this, it was in your power to give a waiver, but they just, because they just don't think this is fair. So if you agree and don't want to reconsider it, that's fine, and we'll send it all out.
I thought a year ago, the board decided to come up with a procedure because the code, I believe, allows an annual pass.
It does.
And we, as I recall, we went ahead and approved him for an annual pass because for every single school that he's asked to do their T-shirts for, or whatever uniforms for him to have to fill the forms out was onerous. So we looked at, that's how I recall we looked at it.
Well, they had to get signatures from the school officials, and so it wasn't just a simple.
And we've since also
Yeah.
Approved
gave
others.
this to others too, so.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm doing my boss's duty.
Just send it back with all absolute due respect.
Nail it, they'll nail it.
We had a lawyer on the board who can tell the right language.
That's right. It's just the right
See,
touch, right?
Dr. Kelly's been waiting forever to be the chair so he can, as a professor of philosophy, can philosophize.
That's right, absolutely, right? You know, the age of the philosopher king has arrived. All right, very good. Hey, let's take a look at old business C then. Parent information paragraph. This is the legacy of Marissa, right? It's like a ghost speaking as a letter from the grave. Don't let the teachers get away with it.
And we don't have that letter in this package, do we? It was,
Yes.
Oh, do we? No,
email.
It was
It's an email.
With my name on top. And then, the policy was her draft of disclosure.
It's very small, it's like the
Disclosure.
form.
Yes, yeah, nice.
It's kind of lumped
It looks like
one
this,
agenda. item.
very short. I don't like the first sentence, but
How would you like to change it?
I don't know either. I forgot that part.
Yeah, we kind of ran over the last one, Robin, so you get this. I'm going with whatever you want.
I just like starting off negatively. I know.
Yeah, should we replace parents with evildoers?
Actually, I think your discussion we had prior to the meeting where you've spoken to a teacher who has since decided to never take any contributions from anybody because it creates an issue. And this was apparently a big problem in the past, years ago, where
Years
teachers
ago.
would receive a lot of money. And there was some quid pro quo. I think we've addressed that at this point, but that's,
A side note, I asked a young woman, friend who teaches at Golden View, because we all thought that they had seen my things. She said, I never got anything more than $25. She said, I get very few gifts. But that's junior high level, so.
yeah, I think it's the elementary school level that we have the issue.
Well, I agree with Robin. I think this could be stated in a more positive light. Recognition of what they do, and say, here's some problems, and here are some safe harbors for you.
Yeah.
And
Otherwise, I think from after the first sentence, I'm fine with everything else. I just think the first sentence needs to be a little, because now it just reads to me that we're automatically accusing them of something.
What happens when a teacher is given a substantial gift and they appear before the board? I mean, is it automatically rejected as you can't do that? Or is it simply a determination is then made that it's okay? Do these gifts go through?
They break down in tears.
They seriously,
That's not a joke. The last one, we only had one come in.
Well, I had one
crying.
and she broke down in tears, but the issue is, how do you give somebody back a gift? We're trying to go to the parents and say, don't. We're trying to protect the teachers in some degree.
But like, say for example, in the tears example, did she report this herself or did somebody report it on her? Okay, so there's nothing unethical about what she's doing because she's simply wondering whether she was receiving a gift properly, right? So there's no ethical challenge to her personally.
The question was, it was a large amount of gift. And the question came up was, does she still have that student in her class? Is there, that forms a bad perception automatically.
What did the board say? Did the board say take it back?
No,
Or-
because she'd already used it.
They were airline tickets.
They were airline tickets.
So did she get in trouble? Was she disciplined in any way? Or
No, and our principal came in, we were trying
public
to.
slapping or anything like that?
No, it was actually pretty.
No, we're trying to be educational about it. Strictly speaking, the code does prohibit the receipt of
Oh, it
gifts.
absolutely prohibits.
Yeah, the receipt of gifts that, the receipt of gifts that could be, the timing and nature of which could be reasonably inferred to be affecting the judgment.
So there's a catch-up.
So in other words, if I give, again, our view has been, again, some of these gifts, right? If I give you, $800 airline tickets.
Right.
2 weeks before my kid's final grades are due.
Right.
I think a reasonable person could infer that their impartiality, that the intention or the impartiality of the teacher has been affected. So it does prohibit that. And so when these teachers disclose this, our view has been that basically some of these gifts, when they receive these gifts, they're in violation of the code. And nothing happens to them in part because, to be honest, thankfully, no one yet has filed a notice of potential violation. But if someone were to do
Like
so,
another student or-
another irate parent, right?
Right.
I mean, if this was in the ADN 2 years ago when we went to the board and asked the board to pass a policy on it, I don't know. Yeah, if I found out that that we were giving $300, $400, $500 gifts to teachers, one, I'd be upset, and I think there would be a conflict of interest for a teacher to receive that kind of gift. And you could imagine someone filing a notice, and then that teacher could be disciplined for that. So part of the idea has been to try to educate, so part of it, we went to the board, and we went to the board mostly in the spirit of give these teachers some more specific guidance than just this amorphous, could be inferred
The
to.
district came to the board and
Yeah, and the school, because after all, we played like APD, right, they have very specific guidelines about these kids precisely for this reason. The school board did not do that, they refused to do it. And so what we've been trying to do is we've been trying to kind of take more an educational role then and say, look, we perceive this to be an ethical problem. And so we're trying to work then on both ends, both the kind of like supply and demand end, that might be the wrong way, but on the input and the output end, right, on the one hand, go to teachers that we see receiving these kind of gifts, and, we've got a stock letter that we send to them now outlining, look, there's a problem here, this is very likely in violation of the code, and you could be disciplined if someone filed a notice of potential violation. You're vulnerable when you receive these gifts. And for some of them, we're actually bringing the teachers in to talk to them, not for like a star chamber type purpose, but just to kind of, even though the last one did cry, but to educate. And now this is like trying to work on the other end, because part of the problem is that in some of these cases, teachers, I think, accept these gifts because, to turn the gift away is potentially very offensive to some parents, especially we have some cultures in town, right, where gift giving is a very, very important part in which one personally expresses gratitude, right? And to have it returned or rejected, in essence, because, I'm sorry, this will be thought of as a bribe if I receive it, that would be very offensive to some people. And you can see what we've tried to get the school board to do is not put teachers in the middle of this, like force the teacher to make that kind of on-the-spot judgment about the ethics of it. So the point here is to try to get this information out to parents and kind of, and what I would like to add to the letter is just a little bit more language about the point of this is to protect the teacher. That when you give teachers these kind of gifts, you make them vulnerable. You put them in a difficult position in terms of their compliance with the ethics code.
I completely agree too about this deserves a sentence or two at the very beginning about how much we appreciate teachers' efforts and how it's perfectly understandable why you might want to help.
Absolutely, and that teacher's gifts to a teacher is a good thing. That there's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
This is with the best of, we understand this is with the best of intention. I would think that you would not want to give the impression that you're accusing them of bribing teachers. You're saying, look, we understand what your point is.
Absolutely.
I would, it's the lawyer in me, I would completely rewrite
And
that.
I think I would also change the last sentence just a little bit. Just take out the values and just say, generally the board views gifts from a group of parents is acceptable. However, they will be evaluated as standards set forth in the code, rather than value.
Would you like to draft?
I'm wondering if I should volunteer to do that.
Sounds like it should be you or David.
No, go ahead. I'll be happy to red pen it when you're done.
Yeah, that's right.
He fits right in.
Great. Yeah, I like this guy.
Which is great, because I cannot edit
That
for
might work,
anything.
though.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
But I just would caution the lawyers and philosophers that these have to be read by people at a very general level.
Oh, yes.
Honestly, you were there on the board.
I insist no more than 2 or 3 Latin phrases.
Yeah, and definitely keep, reduce the number of like quotations and citations.
Exactly. Okay, I will work on.
Okay, so should I make a motion that you amend the,
Mr. Kelly Silver, if you could.
since you can't amend it, that would have to be up to Dave to second.
Second.
What was the motion?
The motion is for Robin to rewrite this paragraph that we're going to include in all newsletters.
You're seconding that?
Second.
Discussion? Good. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, good.
Barbara, could you email this to me?
Passes.
I will.
D, discussion of how to notify teachers. So,
September
Did
20th.
you have were you involved in this discussion? Did you have an opinion about whether this
I do have it.
this letter was?
No, Marissa drafted, so I just printed off my emails.
Never mind, I do
went
have it.
up there. Yeah,
I see
no,
that I do have
think
it.
too, it needs to be a little softer.
Okay, I didn't know your involvement. I didn't mean to
Yeah.
cut you off.
No.
Oh, okay.
I see that I did receive it, so never mind, I have it.
Yeah. This last one is mine. I have not connected with Eric Thompson. I will do that.
Okay, oh, and that's D, that's the, is that what D is? The how-
That was D, I'm sorry, but it's, and C, still, we have the gift disclosure form that Marissa had.
Hello,
I don't know.
this is the Board of Ethics? Are you here for the Board of Ethics?
Not really, but I'll say hi. How's everybody doing? Is this a bad time, Teresa Overmeyer?
Yeah, we're in the middle of our agenda.
Okay, well, Lord, it's your agenda. You know, I used to come.
Okay.
I'll say hi. You have a minute?
Okay, well, if we're on the specific items now.
Let me just see what you're doing.
So this is gift disclosure form. Marissa redrafted. I think it's sort of fit under.
Is that D? Okay, so let's move on to D then. And
Let me get your name.
hi, I'm Terry Kelly.
Timmy?
Terry.
Terry, so nice to meet you. Terry was very nice. Really, you're all different. It's all musical chairs, but I'll follow up at some other time if you don't want me to say hi. Or is there time in a little while because I'm going over to see Barbara Jones?
It'll be at the very end of the meeting, it'll probably be close to 5:30.
Let's see what time it is. I'm not sure. Let's just keep it open. Good to see you. Please be nice and merciful. That's all I ask. Have a nice meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's your first meeting, Tyson Fire. That's your first one? Oh, Terry.
Oh, yeah, this is not my first run with her.
So pleased to be here. Wow. I don't know. I officially feel like an Anchorage resident. Okay, so let's move on. So the new form. What do you think about the new form? Did you come up with this, Barbara?
No, Marissa did.
This is another,
Teresa did, but Marissa
Is this a
did.
another Marissa workshop?
Going out the door. This was.
Do you have a copy of this?
No, I'm sorry, what does that look like? What do we, this is a
It
form?
looks like this. It says
Right,
gift disclosure teacher.
Oh, yes, yes.
I think the whole first top is just unreadable to the average person. It's just gobbledygook reciting the code.
Well, because it was written by a lawyer.
And so in a code, it should
No
say...
disrespect to the lawyers, the two of you across.
No, I would,
Yeah, but it's,
I couldn't agree more.
It just doesn't make any sense. And isn't the purpose of this form to make it easier for the board to review what was actually done here? And to give the people filling out some thought of these other factors?
I mean, there are some stuff here, like, for example, is this particular student going to continue to be a student of yours? There's some good stuff in here.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with that portion.
It's just the
code-
intro part.
Yeah, the intro part means, I couldn't understand what it said. And then I don't think, that in addition to any other penalty or punishment that may apply to submission of a false statement, I'm just not, I say it's correct and having that other portion to it. Do we say that on all our?
I'm just gonna grab
I think
one.
it is on
Yeah,
our-
it is.
Oh, is it?
Okay, so we have general agreement then to get rid of the top section.
Well, maybe soften it.
I mean, or even just.
Oh, yeah, so would people rather have it be in sort of English or just kind of get rid of it altogether? I mean, I will say, I can kind of see her motivation to put it there to kind of get that section of the code. I mean, when we had our teacher in last time, she was under the, she did not realize that this was in the code, right? She was citing a different part of the code where she felt she was fine as long as she disclosed it. And when I read her, this section almost verbatim, she was like, well, the code doesn't say that. And I was like, well.
I think there just needs to be an intro paragraph or an intro sentence here that says the following is the code.
Can it be a citation to the code? Instead of the
Or instead of
language itself?
printing the code
I mean,
out.
of course,
Yeah.
I would want to put it in a footnote, which is completely inappropriate. Right? So, but maybe what this could do is, like you said, if the teacher was aware of and just mistaken about the code,
Right.
you could summarize it in a way that people could understand and say, and then cite the code.
Code to.
And then people can look it up if they want to. I don't know, it's just a thought.
No, I
What would be your
It's an
form that's like this, right? Do we have a form that has a section of the code on it? Oh, yeah, those, right?
You could footnote it. I don't know if
There's one underneath,
for a
yes, the
form.
last one.
I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, it's listed at the bottom.
or maybe, would it be appropriate to put the, like, footnote?
Oh, yeah, what about that? I mean, because that is almost
Yeah.
David's footnote idea. That's what we've been doing, right? We just have it like a little
blurb at the
the little
bottom.
gobbledygook is at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would work.
And then soften the beginning of it.
Well, that way you just start with, this form must be filled out within 10 days. You just start with that section. And then,
What this does, though, is it reduces all the choices of kinds of gifts you might receive that's on the current form.
Well, but we're looking at for teachers only, right?
Teachers simplify it, yeah.
right.
Because looking at what we received has been from a gift from a family or group of parents. Before or after grades are submitted, these are questions we've had.
Yeah, this would only be for a teacher by a gift, by a student or a parent, but otherwise they fill out the other form. I would assume.
I would assume also.
Is this what's in place now? What was in place before?
The standard disclosure form. is
And you'd
not
see one in, under new business.
Oh,
You'll see an example of one.
oh, oh, I see.
You think this will fit?
We just always had too many questions, and that's why we're.
Well, yeah, this is sort of like saving us a phone call, basically, because what we typically have had when we've had cases where it sort of didn't pass the sniff test, where we're just sort of like, this does not look good. And then we're like, well, I mean, are they ever going to have the student again? So, for instance, the gifts are given after final grades are due, but it's like, okay, it's still a really big gift. I wonder, are they going to have the student again next year? Are there siblings of the student that they're going to have?
It was a payment, right?
Right, well, I mean, or at least, it's
no.
softening up, right?
No, you're getting enough information here to make a judgment.
Well, that's the idea, is to try to get enough information.
Sure.
Yeah, I would suggest moving that. As,
No, I think that makes sense. You could, now that I
Put
see
that
this
as well.
other one, you could put the actual code language underneath there.
that would be.
Even smaller
And
font.
it is an intelligent difference.
Yeah. And I would just start.
Trying to have it right at the top.
I would just start with gifts that are not connected.
Which is what's up at the top of the
Yeah,
existing.
just start the sentence there, or start the form there. Move the other stuff to the bottom. Otherwise, I thought this answered all of our questions.
I had another suggestion. Have you received other gifts from this donor or whatever? I don't know if I'm using donor. Just because that was one thing, was a repetitive gift
Gift or giftee.
and amount. And then there was a gift given before or after grades. Well, some definition of before or after. Otherwise, after your first set of grades, you're after grades the whole rest of the year. So
After
maybe
final grade.
was the gift given
You've got
within 4
midterm
weeks
grades.
before or after grades were submitted? Some cutoff period. And maybe is this particular student likely to continue to be a student if you were
It's a student failing.
Yeah, right. Or, was the student failing before gift? Is student now failing? Oh, the poor teacher came in, she started crying, and we started talking about, but didn't you sense that there was something wrong about receiving
but-
airline vouchers worth hundreds of,
The flip of that is that to her, that the gift was almost valueless because the parent was an airline pilot. They spend, because of the schedule, they spend lots of time in the school.
Sure.
They're always doing things, and he has a certain number of tickets that expire. These were going to expire. They couldn't use them, so it was valueless to the family.
Right.
And it was a nice thing. She's a single mom for 33 years or something, going down
Yeah,
to see
she
her
and her
kid's
sister
wedding,
used
and
to
it was
go down to
just,
something,
like ruined everything.
So she started crying, and she started saying about this gift. She said, it's one of the nicest things anyone's ever done for me. I'm like, yeah, and that's the problem.
I know, that's right.
Because
Yeah.
you're great at their child, and they've done the nicest thing anyone's ever done for you.
Are these meetings recorded?
Yes.
No. There?
Yes, it's connected through there, and it's
In this
And they're
room.
live out in the hallway. You see the screen.
Is there a podium? And oh, okay.
40, and she'll have the recorder in front of her so she can go push the button when we get too off the subject.
Yeah, so is this student likely going to be a student of yours?
I guess, is our intention to correct all this now and get it, and finish up with this one?
Well, those are my only couple suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, we can add it
Yeah, we add it
pretty quickly
pretty
right
quickly.
now.
Okay.
If there's any other suggestions, I suggest we fit it on one page.
Absolutely.
Well, right, I actually think that's,
And that's easily doable.
Yeah, just by changing the size of the font of the other stuff, and you put it on the bottom.
PDF, so I can't actually revise it on the fly. can I? Okay, so
Okay, so if you tell me the changes, I can have it restructured. So the first, under, down through the end of number 2 goes at the bottom in a smaller font.
Yeah.
And one page. We reduce the size of that font, at least we get it one page. And then, D, what was your,
That, the first one was, the one, was the gift given before or after grades? It was the gift given within 4 weeks before or after grades were submitted?
just within 4 weeks?
Before
Of
or
when?
after? Well, I don't know, before or after, I guess it could be. And then the next one was, is this particular student likely to continue? And that matches the next sentence. And somewhere in this, have you received any other gifts from this donor? I guess we used donor before, so we can do that. And then amounts on the same line. And if I could make one other comment here, the heading gift disclosure by a teacher of the Anchorage School District of a gift from student or parent, gift disclosure by a ASD teacher, or just by an ASD teacher.
hey, what's the form say now? Gift disclosure by an employee of the Anchorage School District.
Or ASD teacher gift disclosure.
It's even cleaner.
Yeah, I actually like that. ASD teacher.
Do we want to say teacher though? I mean, because the other
Yeah.
one says ASD employee.
Because this is only for teachers.
Because, the employees, the rest of the
Employers would use
So
this form.
principals and people like that will use
Yeah,
that.
this will only be teacher.
Well, do you want to add principals, teachers slash
How
principal?
about by teaching staff? So the staff would include, what do they thinking it's other people that work for the teachers?
I was looking at this only as people that are actually giving grades.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, we can talk principals and everyone else like that. We can, it's not as,
Because the only one we've actually seen from principals, as I recall, was gifts from the teachers to the principal
Yeah.
for retirement, or, we finished the year under you, thank God.
Nobody likes gifts to the principal.
or good with one look awful, right? That one was,
ASD teacher gift disclosure.
Yeah.
A gift from student or parent. First block, under through the end of 2, goes at the very bottom. Was the gift given within 4 weeks before or after grades are submitted? Is a particular student likely to continue to be a student? Have you received any other gifts from this donor, blank amount? Then, what's the last page? Yeah.
should we include other gifts from the donor when?
I was gonna say, I was just thinking the same
Just-
thing, because I give.
Just in case it was
teachers
several
every
years
year,
ago, right? That's not
But I
really.
give $40. Every year to 4 teachers.
It's amazing my kids got to the Anchorage schools.
My parents never gave my
Cheapskate,
kids
we had to
anything.
go.
I went to all the way through ASD.
Yeah, right. No, we try to angle it so we get gifts from our teachers. That's what we try.
So anyway, so yeah, it would be, have you ever received other gifts from this donor within the last year?
Yeah, I think the last year, that's what we've talked about, that.
Oh, so we don't want, when is it open thing? Okay, yeah, I'd like that. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Because, of course, Dr. Kelly, you don't want to make this too terribly strict because it could actually get pushed over to the university, couldn't it?
No, this?
College students don't have money to go.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'll tell you, it's eye-opening to me to get these kind of gifts.
Mr. Chair, with the amended,
That's hair, Mr. Chair.
yeah, exactly.
Something you're missing.
Meister. Chair.
With the amended changes, I would motion that we, or I would move that we accept the ASD teacher gift disclosure.
We have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, very good. So the new form as amended is approved. Barb, and maybe when you make those revisions, maybe you could just send one out just so we can get like one.
Right, before I send to the day.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just so we get a final look over at it.
But we're not doing official action. We're just looking.
No, this would be just a look over.
No,
yes.
just make sure that I
think it's a fair point. We probably shouldn't do it too much. So if people have problems, call it out and say, look, I've got a problem with this. Let's discuss it again at our next meeting. Again, there's no.
I don't like the font you used.
Yeah, that's right. I don't like that font.
Doesn't the city have an official font?
I want big red letters to say, warning, the code. I want calligraphy. I want code.
Good luck with all that.
All right, new business, review disclosure forms. Let's take a look at this.
Actually, Mr. Chair, I have a disclosure to make. I have a conflict. There's a teacher in here on two of these that received group gifts from other people, not from parents. That happens to be a sister of mine. So I probably should not vote.
You're just trying to leave the meeting early, aren't you?
No.
Trying to conflict yourself.
Yes, I'm trying to escape our visitor.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, that's a good point. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Okay, any objections to Keith just not voting on those particular disclosures that his sister is involved in?
Probably best with the name to the record.
Her name is Christy Jeffries. She teaches at Kincaid Elementary. She's amongst the thousands of Kincaid Elementary teachers that submitted.
All right, so let's take a look at the, with that said, now we're in a position to crack down on someone we know.
I did not see any that drew my attention. They were either all, oh, wait a minute, what was this one? Oh, no, that was door prizes. I like some of the explanations on some of them.
Well, that's not necessarily, the sums are large, but it seems like they're all door prices.
They're all door prices or gifts, or gifts from groups, so I didn't see anything that invoked individual attention.
As I was reading through these, this to me is something that would clarify code. I think this could be done. I don't have wording today, obviously, but if it's a gift from the PTA, if it's a door prize,
Right.
if it's a
To avoid
gift
having
from
this.
Walmart of
Right.
pencils and papers.
Absolutely.
Those are, I think that's something that clearly the amendment code is run out of white paper. Apparently, sometimes you put stuff in the machine and it comes out.
Well, in the meantime, I talked to Eric about how to notify teachers, right? We could include that if we're going to try to educate them. We could include that, this could be the one side saying, look, these are the kind of things that you don't have to be filling out disclosure forms for.
Do you have authority within the code to exempt those? Or do we read the language clearly enough?
The ethics actually, you're right. I don't think we do.
Well, we
You're
need
right, we
to
don't.
clarify whether you do or don't.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we accept the disclosure forms as presented.
I just point out, one of them was over your $50 limit, and it was parents. It's the Arthur Harmon Winterberry $150 gift certificate,
But isn't that one, even that one?
cross-country running parents of athletes.
See, that's a group, isn't it?
Oh, okay, we
Oh,
made
I remember that one, yeah. I thought that was a group too, right? It was a group.
Oh, okay, well, you read it that way.
Then there is one that's not school board that's gifted a jacket from the,
Oh, yeah.
That's for $39. I was surprised it was even here.
The jacket.
and also the fire department. Yeah, she had a gift to the station.
Yeah, I didn't see a problem.
How often is this once a year or once?
No.
How often do you
Every
get stacks like this?
Every meeting.
Every meeting?
Wait till January.
Yeah, wait till
Yeah.
the holidays and wait till May and June,
Every meeting? You go through a stack like this?
at least. Oh, no, stack will be significantly bigger.
I definitely agree with what you were saying. I mean, these all fit in these kind of categories that really don't apply.
There are.
Oh, and I should say, that is a little unusual. There clearly were things that went on. Usually we have some that are like PTA meetings or auction type stuff. Usually we have a stack about that big, and it's all, it's probably 90% person. It is
Oh,
person.
really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Parents.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, you'll see
Oh, I
it.
thought these
Yeah,
were
no,
all...
this is actually an exception.
Wait until January after Christmas, and, yeah.
This is actually an
Well, and I
exception.
also think there's a little bit, now that the board is cracking down on this, now you're gonna start flooding us with
Right,
paperwork.
sure.
So, you're right, it probably
Is this actually, in my opinion, is the first time I've seen something from Kincaid, and I think our spreadsheet will show it. They weren't ever even there. And the whole school submitted something.
We did a spreadsheet we did one time that showed all the gifts that were reported over a year, 2-year period. 80% of the schools weren't reporting anything.
Right.
Yeah.
It just came from a couple of schools.
Where the principals must have
Right.
taken them aside at a staff meeting. But now, again, this large influx, I really think is probably in view of us cracking down on it.
But again, it'd be really important to get the letter drafted so we can, by next meeting, so we can get to the school district by Thanksgiving, so that they can
Because of the holidays.
get it in the newsletters, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have it.
Yeah, the parent one, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have it.
And do we want to cook up something for next time about what to give the teachers? Or what did we decide to do, that we were going to just give them the form letter that we use?
Well,
This is to the parents.
Sorry, the letter that Marissa drafted, that Robin's going to redraft, that Dave's going to edit, Robin's redraft.
Right.
Yeah.
But that one's for parents, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
we should
Yeah.
cook something up for teachers.
Oh.
Because that's where we could include this kind of information, right? I mean, we should probably get some sort of literature or some sort of blurb that we give to the school district saying, like, look, when you do your orientations each year and this and that, this is what you should give the teachers on this gift issue. And then we could, articulate these kinds of, well, what would we articulate? Boy, I guess now we might have to change the code, right? The code's
You
pretty clear. It's over $50. It's going to be disclosed, yeah, so, never mind. Though we should still come up with some sort of letter. I'll come up with some sort of letter to give them.
I think that, what you're saying, good is we do the new form, do a cover letter to the form, we revise the form to make it easier for you to explain, and by the way, don't forget to fill them out, that kind of thing. We can take them over to the district, but I think it's probably about 7 reams of paper and about 3,500 teachers are high off, I bet.
We could come up, here's how we do it. We come up with this new specific form just for these kinds of cases. And then when we get them, we don't have to read them. It's the dawning of a new age, my friends.
Finish this
We
discussion.
have a motion, no second, and to approve all.
Yeah, it's just going to die for lack of a second. Do we have?
No, I seconded her motion.
Oh, you did? Okay.
No, I didn't hear that either. That Kelly Silver is very stealthy. Discussion, any further discussion on accepting these disclosures? All right, very good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We didn't hit on D of old business. I think that the concern we had was that the notification to the teacher went through somebody
Oh, yeah,
Right.
Barb said she hadn't had a chance to talk to
Okay,
him.
I apologize, I missed that.
Yeah, and I think what I will propose to him, from other discussions we've had sort of in general at the time, is if we send the letters to him in a sealed confidential envelope and he transmits them in a sealed confidential format. I think that would solve the teachers. But I would, we need to stress that they can't sit on his desk, they need to go out
But
immediately.
they also need to be treated.
But we also, I think that we need to figure out a plan for the summer, because there's about 4 months where it's difficult to reach them when they're home, so.
Oh, do you have a stamp that says confidential or something?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, remember that was the thing we did for that one, right?
did
Remember
we
had
actually
stamped
stamp?
confidential all over the place. So the one teacher we brought in, we sent her this letter, and it was stamped confidential all over the place. And she said, oh yeah, I just got it, and it had been taken out of the original envelope. I just got it in her office envelope, unfolded. We're like, oh yeah, sorry about that. We'll talk to the school
Yeah.
district about that. All right, we got one more, right? This election, we got elections commission declaration.
commission ones.
Yeah, we got commission declarations.
Nobody said anything, and we don't have yours yet.
Your what? What is this?
Normally we gave them at least a
Your
meeting.
disclosure form.
I filled it out. I sent it in.
Oh, just send it to Jacqueline?
No, I sent it to Jane Jackson.
Oh,
Okay, now watch
therein
it.
lies the problem, I'll get it.
Because sometimes you don't see it for months and months.
Really?
I don't know that I've ever seen
No,
mine.
no, Jay should have it.
Yeah,
Yeah. we'll
Yeah,
get
Jay
it.
should have it.
But they didn't come to me, I'll follow up with Jay.
absolutely, because
Yeah.
for some reason it didn't get to her.
No, I'm sure it did, it's from her to me that
I'm
sometimes.
gonna have to step off the board for a minute and file a notice against Mr. Nesbitt here.
Take away all the
Yeah,
posts.
take away all the, see all those votes.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the, what are these called?
Disclosure of economic interest.
The boards and commissions disclosure forms as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second. Oh, can I vote on this?
I was actually giving you space to do it.
All those in favor of accepting these disclosures, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? All right, then that motion passes, and we have accepted those disclosures, and very good. So
Next meeting, there was a discussion about next meeting.
let's talk about our next meeting.
Chairman, you may recall that we discussed, I'd like to suggest that we change our meeting to either the second, if we're going to keep it on Wednesdays, either the second or the fourth Wednesday. I have a conflict on the third Wednesday in almost in perpetuity. And so I'm missing, I am using this as my priority, but I would prefer to be able to also do my other short meeting.
May I
Is that an issue for you?
May I suggest that the second Tuesday would be better, probably both in November and December, because of holidays at the end of those months.
Second Tuesday?
Second
Wednesday, sorry. I'm just-
Yeah, we're
just
wide open, and we have a new member now, so we could also ask David what works for him. My schedule, which had been a problem for us, is now pretty wide open. My classes are complete by 2:15 in the afternoon every day, and then Friday, I'm not off, I'm doing research, but, my schedule's wide open on Fridays, and so what would people like to do in terms of when we meet?
Like this meeting right here? Oh, I thought
Well, this meeting, it's too late, it's the so but for future meetings, when would you like to meet?
Fine, I'm not going to, I have no input. I retract my input. No, this is a nice time for me.
It's a good time for
Sure. Yeah, Wednesday's a good day, and
Would the second or fourth Wednesday be any different?
makes no difference to
Okay.
me. No, it's easier on a different Wednesday, but this is a nice time.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you've got your own firm now, right? So you craft your own schedule.
I can craft my own schedule.
You bring the baby and you do something.
How about Barb and Dee? How about any preference Wednesday, any other day
Well,
better for you
I have to
guys?
tell you, we have, it's called pre-agenda on Wednesday afternoons, every other Wednesday, so it hasn't really, well, actually it did hit today, it was pre-agenda, so I missed those meetings. Is Thursday at all available for people? And I'm the one that next Friday said, please don't do it on Fridays.
Fridays are not available.
Yeah, no.
No, because you're winging your way to your cabin about that.
I am,
So
so I'm usually gone on Fridays.
Well, that's why we stopped doing Fridays. One of the reasons in the summer, no one really wanted to do
No,
it.
and even frankly, that sometimes boils over into Thursday evenings as well.
Okay.
But obviously,
Well,
if we,
Well, let's leave it Wednesday then. I'm not sure if
Can we do Thursday earlier? Can people do Thursday like noonish?
Just a second, let me just double check.
I get out at 11:15 on Thursdays, and so I could meet, I could be here by noon, we could do noon to 2 if that works for people.
It's an interesting idea. Here's that.
It's for 2 hours. So maybe 2 to 4. Yeah, I mean, I think that would work.
Well, yeah, Terry suggested,
Thursday at say 2 or?
well, he suggested 12 to 2.
But
Oh, noon.
2 work, but maybe if your concern is, not having these meetings spill into Thursday evening, it could be.
Well, what ends up happening is, if I come here, then it's hard to go back to the office and be productive. I'd rather this be the concluding part of my day if possible.
Right.
I mean, so-
I can
but
do-
No, but this is what it's about. It's about getting the interest, everyone's interest out. the
I just
table.
assume
Something out.
when this meeting's over, I leave. But say at 2:30 would work on Thursdays. That works.
2:30 to 4:30?
Yeah? Does that work okay?
Could we do maybe 2 to 4 instead, Terry?
Because you have daycare.
Elias has to get picked up by.
Oh, you're serious?
4:30,
Oh, I
so
thought you were
we do 2 to 4. I mean, actually,
Sometimes I'm not sure when to take you seriously. 2?
That would be great. Boy, Cheryl would be doing cartwheels. That'd be fantastic. Yeah, because then I can start.
We could try that. I don't have it.
That would be much better.
Does that work for everyone? How about Keith? Does that work for you?
It works, I just have to make sure my office is always covered on Wednesdays and Fridays. If it's going to be on Thursdays, good. What day did we say? We're still on Wednesday?
It'd be a Thursday.
Okay, I can do it, I just have to make sure my office is covered, it's not a problem.
Now, is that going to be financial hardship?
Well, actually, by this time next month, I don't see an issue at all, because I just hired somebody, he's got a test to pass tomorrow, and then so I can probably leave him for a couple hours with that.
Okay.
And the
I
only-
appreciate that.
And the only thing I would have is if it went longer, I would have to leave for another board meeting.
Okay. Well, I would be in the same boat. We'd have to wrap up. I would have to leave probably, around 4:15, 4:20.
Oh, I'd have to leave by 5. That's why I said if it went
No, no. At least you'll be leadership. You'll be leaderless out there.
And
My
third
impression.
Thursday of every month?
Do we have another action item to elect a vice chair, or do we need to?
I'm sorry, could we stay on this for just a second?
Right, so that would be this.
Thursday the 17th.
17th is the
Third
next one,
Tuesday? Thursday, the third Thursday.
Thursday. That sounds pretty good, right?
I'll be
17th.
right across the street, the convention all day long. Will you be there?
We're going to do 2 to 4, right?
I'm going to be there, another booth on the...
Thursday of
Every month, right? So that would be
already
December 15th,
15th of
right?
December.
No, she'll probably be there.
And then the 19th of January. Can we sort of fix this to go forward, or?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's-
November
But what about-
17th.
What about your schedule for the second semester? Is that- we don't-
December
we don't
15th?
need it?
Oh, something, well, let me see if I can pull it up real quick without holding everybody up. Let's see, I don't know it off the top of my head, but
Yeah, well,
the
we said
pipes and
it's-
tubes of the internet are
it's-
filled with this
It's
information.
good for
that Al Gore
the public
gives us.
has a consistent time that they know.
The Senator Stevens, I said they were 2. Al Gore just didn't get it.
Don't make Al Gore angry, because what he gave us, he can take away.
You gave us something.
So, do we say 2 to 4? Okay. So did we say 12, 11, 17, 12, 15?
And we're looking about 119. Or Dr. Kelly's schedule gets sometimes,
And 119?
yeah, for now.
Yeah, rock job.
And then on 119, we'll figure out whether this is working, we'll keep going. Does that work?
Well, I
Are you
might
back
need
in
to just...
class by 19th?
Well, I'll be back in class by the 19th, yeah, so I might, let's see, I'm pulling it up
Or
right
should we address this in December?
now.
Correct, we didn't start like the 25th, okay?
I know, right? Well, actually, you might be right. Let's see. No, man, class starts January 10th?
Really?
To get out to
That means my break is only like 3 weeks long. That's how it is.
Oh,
You have to file this.
There's a point where an honest man has to take a stand against injustice, my friends.
You go to work.
I go to work. All right, I'm pulling it right now. Now I have found it. And the answer is Kelly. There's a Monday, Wednesday class. It's online. online. So that's Monday, Wednesday. That's online. Aesthetics is Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. That's hybrid. No, that's gonna work.
Okay,
That's gonna
good.
work. Yeah, that's gonna work.
So we'll lock this in through January
Yeah, that'll work.
on the schedule.
Is that an issue for Room 240 in the schedule of normal assembly work meetings and whatnot?
Thursdays are okay. Actually, sometimes if we have a late meeting on Tuesday, I'm feeling a little gone by
Right,
5
okay.
o'clock on Wednesday. So,
Well, after being up till midnight on Tuesday.
yeah. 14-hour days.
All right, very good.
Okay, you had
Don't
a,
get it.
Did you want to add electing and vice chair? You wanna-
I don't know if it's something we're required to do, I'm just asking.
it's good to have one.
That's probably a good idea. Can we do it now? Can we add it to the agenda so late, or is that something that we have?
I have a problem with that.
Do we have a motion to amend the agenda?
I move to amend the agenda to accept the election of a vice chair.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, let's amend the agenda and let's have an election for vice chair. Who wants to be vice chair?
You got somebody in mind yourself?
It kind of, I'm sensing early on it's working very well for both of you. You kind of,
Understanding that it's only a year, I would accept the nomination.
All right, very good. Anyone else want to do it?
I nominate. Who's vice chair right now? You are.
He's chair.
Chair. Oh, you're talking about vice chair.
Yeah.
Mayor Dr. Kelly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, you know you're grooming yourself for the big seat then, you know.
Mr. Chair, I move that we.
You're so enthusiastic.
Wow, there's an endorsement of your leadership.
I move that we accept the nomination of Mr. Silver as vice chair.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, congratulations. Mr. Silva, you are now officially vice chair of the Ethics Board. Members' comments. Number 8, welcome to David Nesbitt to our first meeting. Thank you so much for volunteering. We've been a bit short-handed for a while now, and so not only am I excited, one, to have someone, but to have someone of such high quality.
Thank you. Now you have help reading these conflict forms.
That's right. Now we have something to talk about during barbecues. Right?
That's right.
It's the planes and the Ethics Board.
Remember Open Meetings Act.
As long as there's just two of us, they can talk, right?
Well, this is not a confidential meeting. Right? Anything that happens at the meeting we can talk about,
Unless it.
That's right. Some issues will be confidential,
but nothing today is.
Today
but
was.
nothing confidential. And I think if it's just the two of us talking, we can.
I know, I was just kidding.
Well, I figured if you do want to be careful about some kind of discussion, it would be about the ethics board, right? Of all boards to be talking about, Harry. That's right. When we're in Parks and Rec, we don't have to worry about anything.
Any other members' comments?
No, I look forward to the next appointment.
Yes.
I look forward to going home and watching baseball.
All right.
World Series.
I know, it's that time.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
You don't need a vote on that one.
Well, I'm trying to remember, I don't think you need a second for it either.
No. Once it's
Unless,
requested.
You have to vote on it, though. I think
no, you don't.
No,